The Pokemon series is full of great video games, but even great games have glitches in them, and Pokemon is no different on this account. Perhaps one of the glitchiest moves in the game is Transform. There's actually an entire page on Bulbapedia dedicated to glitches involving the move Transform. And so, perhaps unsurprisingly, a glitch involving Transform in Scarlet and Violet is the subject of today's video. But before we can dive into this glitch, we need to understand something first, and that's how the game recognizes Pokemon forms. Let's use Toxtricity for an example. Toxtricity has two forms, its amped form and its low-key form. The Pokédex will even display these names to you if you look at Toxtricity in there. What's not displayed, though, is a hidden number assigned to each form a Pokemon has. We can refer to this number as a form ID, and the form ID is what tells the game which form a Pokemon is in. Going back to Toxtricity, its amped form has a form ID of 0, and the low-key form has a form ID of 1. If we look at another Pokemon as an example, say Eiscue, its Ice Face form has a form ID of 0, while its No Ice Face form has a form ID of 1. So now that we know what a form ID is, you may be wondering how this ties into a glitch involving Transform. So when a Ditto uses Transform on you, it's supposed to copy a number of things like your type, your ability, your moves, your stats, but one thing that's not supposed to get changed is the Ditto's catch rate. No matter what Ditto transforms into, Ditto's catch rate is supposed to stay at 35, making it kind of tough to catch. Not impossible, of course, but still a bit difficult nonetheless. However, if Ditto were to transform into something with a form ID greater than 0, then, for some reason, Ditto's catch rate becomes 0. Yes, that's right. If Ditto transforms into a Pokemon with a form ID of 1 or higher, then its catch rate becomes 0. For some reason. This means that, unless you use a Master Ball, that Ditto is impossible to catch. And let's be real here, why would you use a Master Ball on a Ditto? This bug is eerily similar to one in Legends Arceus where Cherim would become uncatchable if it transforms during battle. Which leads me to wonder if maybe some leftover code from Legends Arceus is what's causing this bug in Scarlet and Violet. Either way, as of version 1.1.0, the current version as of this video, the bug is still present in Scarlet and Violet, so you'll want to be careful when choosing a Pokemon to fight Ditto with if you're planning on catching it. The only exception to this is if you encounter a Ditto in a Terra Raid battle, as catch rates just don't apply there. You always catch a Pokemon in a Terra Raid battle. Oh, and in case anyone is wondering, a shiny Pokemon does not count as a different form, meaning they do not trigger this glitch. Thanks to regular viewer Shy Blukester for letting me borrow one of his shiny Pokemon to test this out with. Now you might be thinking that that's the end of this glitch and there's nothing else to talk about, but there actually is. I specifically mentioned earlier that the Pokédex tells you the names of the different forms that Pokemon have. Therefore, if a Pokemon doesn't have an alternate form, then no text is displayed. You could theoretically use this to determine which Pokemon are safe to use to catch Ditto without messing up its catch rate. Unfortunately, there are two Pokemon that technically do have alternate forms, but there's zero way to tell. Their typing's the same, their stats are the same, their abilities are the same, they look the same, and the Pokédex doesn't have any text saying the names of these forms, like with stuff like Toxtricity and Eiscue, and literally every other Pokemon that has a form. In other words, there's zero way to tell that these two Pokemon will trigger this glitch with Transform. The two offending Pokemon are Scatterbug and Spewpa, and at this point you may be going, wait a minute, the pre-evolutions to Vivillon? That cursed butterfly that has like 20 godforsaken different forms that are geographically dependent? Yes, that's Scatterbug and Spewpa. And that's likely what those forms are for, actually. There's one different form of Scatterbug and Spewpa for each of the forms that Vivillon has. Now, all of the Scatterbug and Spewpa in the game evolve into the same form of Vivillon, meaning all Scatterbug and Spewpa have the same form ID, and that form ID is greater than 0, Therefore, this means that every Scatterbug and Spupa will trigger this glitch with Transform, rendering any transformed Pokemon virtually uncatchable. But again, you wouldn't know this just by looking at Scatterbug and Spupa. Thankfully, every other Pokemon that triggers this glitch is marked in the Pokédex as having an alternate form. And, you know, there's some kind of obvious visual difference or difference with stats or abilities or something else to give away that, yes, this is an alternate form. Although, that does remind me of something that makes this a little more confusing. There are some Pokemon, like Starly for example, that have gender differences. Gender differences don't trigger this glitch, just full-on form changes. This gets confusing because Oinkologne has different forms that are based on its gender. You might think these would just be glorified gender differences, but they have different abilities and different stats, so they are actually forms. And also, the Pokédex kind of backs this up. Before I go, there's one more aspect about this glitch that I want to show off, and that's triggering it with Eiscue. See, Eiscue automatically starts a battle in its Ice Face form, and in order to change into its no Ice Face form, it has to take a physical attack. Now, you might just think, well, Ditto can transform into the Ice Face form, and then you hit the Ditto with a physical attack. But one caveat about Transform is that Ditto can't change forms after it's used Transform. In other words, if you wanted to execute this glitch with Eiscue, you would have to find a way to change Eiscue into its no Ice Face form before Ditto uses Transform. There are a couple of ways to do this, but the easiest one is probably to lead with a Pokemon that knows Taunt and use it on the Ditto. Taunt prevents a Pokemon from using status moves, like Transform. Since Transform is the only move Ditto can learn, Ditto won't be able to use any moves after it gets taunted, meaning it'll automatically use Struggle, which counts as a physical attack. So after you use Taunt on the first turn, you switch into Eiscue, it'll get hit by Ditto's Struggle and change Eiscue into its no Ice Face form. Once Ditto's taunt is over, it'll be able to use Transform and transform into no Ice Face Eiscue. Once Ditto uses Transform, congratulations, you have successfully created an uncatchable Ditto in the most obtuse way possible. And that's about everything I wanted to mention. It took me a while to get this video out because I had the idea for it since December, but I was unable to make the video until now for a variety of reasons. Still, I wanted to have this glitch archived somewhere just because I thought it was really funny and just a neat little thing to have covered somewhere. And with that, thank you so much for watching everyone. If you want to help the channel, please leave a like, leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed. Check out what's on the screen for some more Pokemon content too. A big thanks to Lord McAfee, Mithril Monarch, and the rest of my patrons for going the extra mile and financially supporting the channel. See you next time, everyone.